4 things that Logos Global was
Doing for people?
doing for people, and I never heard the 4th thing.
Okay, we will give them a covering by helping them get incorporated, getting their EIN number, getting their 501c3, and getting their Constitution and bylaws. And one of the things I do with Constitution and bylaws, because 90%, 95% of our folks, they're autonomous. And I know, we all know people are absolutely saints. No one in a Christian organization or a humanitarian organization or in your company would try to usurp any authority or control in your company. They just wouldn't do anything like that. Well, that's a lie. It's on your point before, when you told that young man, you got to tell me this is a lie after I tell it to you, or you're not forgiven, but that's a lie. What I do with their Constitution and bylaws, I tell them, look, you got to have 3 to 5 officers on the corporation. And I tell them this is what I want, this is what I propose. If you don't want it, that's fine. When I'm writing your Constitution and bylaws, in the bylaws, I say the corporate officers of this organization also serve as the trustees. And the trustees must approve and ratify every decision made by committees and boards and whatever. What it does, it gives a firewall around those founders so someone's not going to come in the back door and steal their organization. Now, I'm so good at this, I've even had that done to me.
Wow.
Albeit illegally, because I was actually the president of the corporation. But, so, as they say, stuff happens.
Yeah.
And in business, I've had to work with a number of business people. I had a guy he had an oil drilling company in Ohio in our church. He was a good brother, but he would get himself crosswise with stuff. And so he'd call me, Pastor, what do I need to do? Well, you don't kill the guy. That's not, put the gun down. But let's sort out how we can restructure what you are doing here so that this can't happen. Or if it does happen, they're going to go to jail. Now, I had that option, but I didn't send anybody to jail. Jesus will take care of them. So those are the 4 things. But the one thing with the
I got
Constitution,
incorporation, 501c3, Constitution, and bylaws.
the incorporation, the EIN number,
Okay.
501c3, and the Constitution and bylaws.
Okay.
Because the thing of it is, an EIN number is just your social security number with the IRS. That's all it is. That's not that's some people get an EIN number and it says IRS and they think they have a 501c3 and they don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. And so that's one of the things that we had to sort out. And I find so many times, just like we did with my congregation, some of the people who had their own businesses, we'd work with them through some of their stuff, and this way back when, and all of that served as education for this when I got to this point, because that oil guy was not interested in serving anybody except getting him out of his way so he could drill.
You guys do you still ordain and credential ministers?
That is correct.
So that's a 5th thing, which is.
Yes, it is. We do that.
Yeah, clergy credentials.
And we also rescind them. We also rescind them.
Hey, there we go.
Ordained.
Thank you.
They ordain.
We ordain and credential.
And credential ministers.
Yeah. See, that man is an IT guy already ahead of us. So
Checking out your website.
yeah, I don't blame you. I would too. And then the one thing with these groups, I have a guy here in town. He's a CPA. For a long time, he was the chair of the governor's council for CPAs or whatever he was back some years ago. 25 plus years ago, 27 years ago, they started a 501c3 with us as a subordinate member. This guy, his company grew. He's a CPA. He has lawyers working for him. And I said to him one day, I called his name and I said, you could have one of your guys just do a standalone. And he said, you know, Chuck, he said, that's not even the point. He said, we're friends. And you have helped us when we really needed help. And we're going to stay with you until one of us goes. And that to me was one of the most affirming moments. If you serve, you'll succeed.
There's a little phrase called give and it's given on to you.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I heard that somewhere. It's
Bill
amazing.
McCombs taught me that.
Yeah. Aiden University is the education, and it's part of Logos Global Network. It's under its umbrella, although we have our own board, our own board of directors, our own trustees, as well as our own board of regents and all that. We meet the criteria for the Commission for Independent Education. And again, I look at these, they're ministry organizations, but they parallel any kind of company that you're going to build. If we're Christians, our company ought to reflect the ethos of who we are. And that company should be set up in a proper way that serves, whether it's widgets and gadgets or whether it's a specific kind of service to the community or whatever that people purchase. And so that's just kind of who we are in that world. But it just started out of responding to a need. And I think that's kind of who we are. Aiden University, formerly it was Logos Bible College, started in '77 down here in Central Florida. There was a young man who was going to Southeastern Theological Seminary, and he had a professor there who was an educator, obviously, but so they together started Logos Bible College. And that was back when, you know, the Greek words were getting used. And, Logos was one of them. In the beginning was the word, but we say it Logos, but it's more like Logos. It's Lambda, Omicron, Gamma, Omega, Alpha. Is the way it's spelled, but so I pronounce it the way I want to because it's.
So what year was that started again?
Pardon?
You said what year it was. What was it?
77 is when it began.
Okay.
And it was the same year that we also started our Bible school at the church I was pastoring, which later merged with all these. So
Okay.
that school, our school, and then those merged. And then I came here in '93 to lead Logos Bible College
Okay.
through the merger of our schools.
Right.
And so our history goes back to '77.
Okay.
And then in '04, because we were going for licensure with Aiden, so we could do applied psychology and some other courses that they at that time weren't letting Bible schools do, Christian schools, and so it was a parallel school until 16, and then we put different leadership into Logos. They took it one way. They're in Ocala now, and then we took Aiden in 17 as a freestanding school.
Okay.
Okay,
Good.
and we've matriculated about 45,000 students.
Chuck, what happened in 1986? I've got 1986 down here.
1986 is how Logos got birthed with those young men.
So is that the,
That was-
would you say that's the,
That's the starting point for Logos Global Network.
okay.
It started out to be, actually it started out to be, it was International Covenant Ministries. And so it morphed then.
ICM? International, Covenant Ministry.
Covenant Ministries, yeah. And that was back, and we only kept that for a few years when we were on the mission field. We went into missions in '87, and so that was where that was also birthed, and we were helping churches and missions as well. But with the educational piece, I tell you, you know, it's like running a corporation. Although we got out of the brick and mortar in '07, and we sold all of our property here in town. We had the old shopping center on Arlington Expressway that we had raised which you now see all those multi-level apartments things there that we were talking about earlier. And the Gen Z people don't want a house, they want a room, or 4 or 5 rooms, but so they don't have to mess with anything. And we sold our office building because a friend of mine in England said, Chuck, do you want to be an educator or do you want to be a landlord? And that seed was sown and it produced fruit in 07. That was said to me some years before that. And it was in 07 when the Holy Spirit said, got the wrong people in this stuff. We had other investors and stuff. Get out of it, sell everything, liquidate, do it now. 30 days we did it. We didn't know 08 was coming. But when it came, nobody lost a penny. And it just literally the word of the Lord. But as you all know, you want to be careful too when you're mixing your business. If you have a ministry or you're working with somebody with a ministry, you want to be a little careful how you wed a business with ministry without the right documents and everything, because it can get crosswise both with IRS, it can get crosswise with personality, with outcomes. All those things can really screw things up. And believe me, I've got scars from all of those. And so, you know, I think God looks after idiots, old men, and little kids. And I kind of hit all those categories. I'm not going to tell you what the similarities are, but some of you can figure that out. With Aiden, right now we are completely virtual. At one time we had about 120 church, extension campuses, but in that model, the admin was absolutely unbelievable. And when we even started, we had nothing but 2 computers and one almost worked. But I had a guy write a program, a database for what we needed. And sometimes in your business, if you're not careful, you will go with the shovel when there's another piece of equipment that work a whole lot better. And we need to look at those needs, those objectives, what's slowing things down, what's causing me a heartburn. And we had, I don't know, 15 people on staff and still weren't keeping up. And so as technology came and the whole thing that went away after that, we said, okay, we have to rethink this. Some people will lose a ministry or lose a business because they don't stop long enough to think in an event, either in the midst of, or God forbid, when you're on the other side, you know, just trying to stay afloat. Having some accountability people around you, having a team, people will pray with you, people will give you insight. I've had people come and just give me some pretty brutal analysis. And I'm going, Jesus, you should just take them to glory. I don't need that. And he said, well, your ministry's going to go to glory if you don't do something. And so we've had to make those kinds of adjustments. And they were really tough. They were embarrassing. My office has wound up in cubicles in my garage. But you know what? We restructured our church. Our extension campuses are not that anymore. They're church-based schools or ministry-based schools owned by that entity, but monitored by us with what they produce. And the same thing, you know, when you subcontract, subcontractors can kill you. And I was raised in construction, and believe me. And so we have to really vet who we're working with, who we're letting handle what we do. So we've really pulled everything in because of technology. We pull things in so that with a smaller staff, we can do actually more. So instead of having to do all the financing, all the records, all the database, everything for every student in those 120 schools, that's your school now. Now, here are the guidelines. Here has to be the outcomes. And when they get to this point, and we do this for several reasons, when you get to this point, you charge your own tuition, but you do not exceed what we charge. If you charge the same as us, you tithe to us 10%. Because we're trying to give you a head start with your students so you don't have to charge them. And ours is only, what, nickel on a dollar, probably, or less? And so then when they get, say, they've accrued 60 semester hours that we approve for transfer, all they have to do is pay a small matriculation fee. I get the transcript from them, we do it, and then we issue the degree. So we're always monitoring. We're in, I don't know how many countries now still with our foreign schools, but they are, again, autonomous. Now I try to visit them or have some of our people visit them, our missionaries. That's on the, oh, I'm going too long. Can I have 10 more minutes?
Of course.
Okay. So that